Hey there, gang. It's Jim
And Christy.
Chuck Cobus with Your Marriage Matters podcast number 145. And babe, I got down off the ledge a little bit from last week.
We're on a tear.
I was on a tear, still on a tear a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'm better.
Good.
And gang, let me explain to you what we mean by that. First thing, let's just talk about some fundamentals. We believe your marriage matters. We believe that it matters to you, to your family, your community, your work. We believe your marriage matters in so many different areas that we're committed to helping you build a more vibrant, healthy marriage. So you experience everything you dreamed of when you said I do. And now we really are wanting to become more proactive about keeping you out of Christy's counseling office, although we appreciate the cash flow, and keeping you out of my divorce care. So we're ramping up kind of our intensity, our sense of urgency. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Mm-hmm.
How would you put it?
Well, I think you just said something that I want to clarify. A lot of times, if couples are struggling, please go to a counselor. Please see somebody who can help you navigate rough waters. But a lot of times people wait too late till they go to a counselor's office. They get in a situation where they're under a lot of duress, and that's never the best place to make a lot of tough decisions. So
I mean, if you go to a counselor's office, we'd rather you be doing it proactively.
Exactly.
Trying to get better.
Preventatively.
So what we decided this week, we're going to do 5 early warning signs that your marriage may be in trouble. And these are things that, here's what you just kind of look at these 5 things and go, do we have these going on? Or is there something we need to be talking? Should we go to Christy's counseling office now and talk about these 5 things? Or
well, and sometimes problems can be insidious. You don't know that things are really bad until they hit crisis stage. Sometimes we've oftentimes said, sometimes there's a wake up call where you just kind of wake up one day and go, gosh, things have really gotten on track. And then sometimes there's a shake up. There's something that happens that really shakes the core of the marriage. And that's a lot of times infidelity or something of that nature that kind of comes out of the blue, more or less. But sometimes if we were aware of what was going on, maybe things wouldn't have gotten as bad.
And gang, one of the things we talked about as we're prepping for this particular session is things can get sideways fast sometimes.
Yes.
And what happens is there's a lot of things that are going on underneath the surface and we're not dealing with it. And then one little bitty thing happens and boom, spiraling takes place. So babe, you're going to take number 1 here. What is the first of our 5 early warning signs that something may not be right in a marriage?
I think the word becomes connection. And connection can be physical. There's a lack of physical connection. There's a lack of emotional or mental connection too, where you're just kind of going through the motions, existing together. And if COVID has taught us one thing, and I think it's taught us a lot, it's the need that we have for human connection. And so sometimes we don't know exactly what it is, but we just know we're not in sync with the other person. And it can come on with other symptoms like you just don't feel like y'all are talking enough or doing things to connect with the other person. And so when I think of a lack of connection, it's while it might be difficult to define, it's easy to detect. It's easy to feel that way, like, oh, we're just not on the same page about a lot of things. So
let me ask you a question though, because you and I went through a period of time where we were very intentional about this. We could get a little out of sorts over a short period of time, but you might say to me, or I might say to you, hey, I just feel like we're not in sync right now. And we would stop and kind of say, okay, what do we need to do to get in sync? Maybe, go on a short trip or just acknowledge it.
Right. And sometimes
and that happens. That's not out of the ordinary.
Oh, that's not. And
on a daily basis.
Right. And sometimes it's just the other person saying, I really just don't feel like we're on the same page, like we're connecting, like you just said. So when that occurs and when you see that going on, then you have to be proactive in problem solving. Okay, since we're not on the same page, since we're not connecting, what's the best, antidote or remedy for the situation?
And you're talking about
intentional.
It's something that lingers though, just over a longer period of time. You feel like we're just not on the same page, and we haven't been on the same page for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not something short term caused by job or feeling ill or something going on or whatever.
But I'd even be concerned a little bit about the short term,
Okay.
because as we just said, it
Spirals
sometimes
out fast.
doesn't take very long and you'll spiral out of control.
Yeah.
Right. So
Awesome. Okay, so gang, number 2 is, and I don't think I've ever felt this way, but maybe, is you look for an excuse not to go home, or not to, to avoid the house. Now, we'll be transparent, and there's been times that Christy and I together didn't want to go home because the house was a mess, or we just wanted to stay out somewhere. We're talking about when you replace being around your spouse with guys maybe going and playing golf or going fishing, taking the long route home, staying at late at
girls
work.
not out,
Well,
guys not out.
Well, yeah, and again, women shopping, girls not out. It's something where you go, man, I'll just do anything because I just don't want to go home because of her or because of him. And it's not like maybe things are terrible, but it's like you're going, I just don't want to deal with her right now. I don't want to deal with him right now. We feel like that from time to time. All right. And again, we've got a great marriage. There's times I know we both feel that way. I just don't want to mess with you right now. But we do, because that's what we agreed upon, and we work through it together, and that creates more confidence or anything. But I think if a couple, either one or both of them, finds themselves avoiding being with each other, even for a few minutes,
Well,
I mean, that to me that's a red flag that's starting to go up, because then we start finding all kinds of bigger and longer term reasons not to be with our spouse.
Well, and you want your home to be a safe place for you both to go to. This should be a place where you find comfort and love and support. And that's why when you don't want to go there because of the other person, okay, what do you need to do to intentionally be brought back together because of it? Because your home is your safe space, or it should be.
Yeah.
So when couples start saying, look, I just don't even want to physically be around them, it can be really a danger zone.
Yeah, where we want you to get to is, if you had a tough day at work or something's going on, we want you to go, I can't wait to be home with Christy. I really need her. I need Jim. I need my spouse, because they're the one person I feel like I can sit next to and work through this with. So if you see yourself avoiding being with your spouse, that's a red flag. And we need to start doing some things about that. So maybe number 3 is similar to that, though.
Number 3 is kind of that same thing. And I hear this with couples all the time. They're not making their marriage or their spouse a priority.
Yeah.
Other things are starting to take up a lot of your time and your space. So when you're finding that your spouse isn't a top priority, then what are you doing to remedy that?
Right.
And I was talking with a couple even actually earlier today, and we were talking about date night, and they both agreed they were so tired that just the thought of, going on a date night, and I thought, then let's redefine what date night is. Date night isn't necessarily dinner and a movie. Maybe date night is dinner and a movie, but it's at your house. It's, something that you've agreed to, that's going to be what y'all need to do to reinvigorate and everything. But the going back to when people get in trouble and they're not making their marriage a priority, it can get very easy to stop pursuing your spouse. It can get very easy. Oh, we're married, we're comfortable. And one of the things that can remedy that is to be in constant pursuit of your spouse.
Yeah.
And that goes both ways, men and women.
Yeah, that's a two-way street there. Babe, when you were saying that, though, part of me was thinking, and again, I know somebody's going to get upset with me. If your work is such that you have no time or energy left for your spouse, then we may be doing the wrong work. Because here's where I'm going with that. And again, I know there's people out there who are jumping up and down right now going, but my career is, and I go, I believe the most important relationship period for success in life is a relationship with God first, which is, we believe that we give that priority. But then this is the most important person on the planet right here sitting next to me. And if I don't have the time or energy to take care of this relationship, then something's wrong. But what I would say is, if I do a great job of taking care of this relationship, it seems like everything else falls in place. And I know people will say, well, it's a busy time of my career. It's a busy time.
Busy
It's a busy season with kids.
Or a busy season at work, different work venues have different times of the year where it's busy. And if you know that, proactively plan for that. I get there are other priorities, and I wish we could just focus on, the priorities of the people who matter the most to us, but that doesn't always happen. But when you start to say my spouse isn't even, in the top 3 or 5, that's when it's a problem. And I hear people say that a lot. I hear I took my eye off the ball. I didn't make my marriage a priority. Other things took precedence. And you said one that happens a lot, and that's kids.
Yeah.
And so one of the best things you could give your kids is to see you investing in the family, in your spouse, and everything too. So.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. I've not done a very good job, but yes, I understand all of these seasons happen, but there never should be any doubt that, as soon as this season's over with, in the midst of that, you still know you're number one. You still, you matter to me more than anything. I've got to go take care of this job right now. But what I'm afraid of people do is they go, hey, babe, as soon as we're done, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But it never gets done. All right. Because again, it's that same spiral out of control so fast. Next thing you know, you're too wrapped up in your job. You're too wrapped up in your kids. You're too wrapped up in the fill in the blank. And now you say this so well, your spouse doesn't get the best part of you,
Yes. And I think that's unfortunate where we give so much to other people.
Yeah.
I've heard people say recently, I just can't say no. And so, I was guilty of that. I'm really guilty of that.
Maybe.
There were so many things that I wanted to do, and probably, unfortunately, I like activities. I'm a people pleaser. So the person who bore the brunt of that a lot of times was you. So it's an easy trap to fall in.
So you know what you just reminded me of though? Here's how that goes well. All right. You remember when you were getting your master's, the first one, and it was like, okay, we're on board with this and everything. And then you decided to get the second master's, and you and I sat down and you said, hey, look, you and I both know what this requires. Are you okay with that? You asked me if I was okay with that. Would I be willing to pick up a little bit more of a load so that you can get the second one? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm all in on that. I want you to go do that. That's when the season gets nuts, but at the same time you handle it well.
And I think here's the early warning signs. Once again, the antidote is getting on the same page. The antidote is saying to the other person, look, here's what we've got to do, put our nose to the grindstone, or whatever the saying is, and say, here's what we're going to need to do to get through this difficult season. And with inflation and everything, a lot of couples are really having to work harder for a period of time, but you could still be on the same page. You still can say to the other person, look, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to get through this?
Yeah, and again, I'm just we could keep talking about this because we got to do a podcast on this.
We probably should.
Just this, it's busy season at work. Hey, babe, I got a tough time coming up. We got a lot of overtime. We're short staffed. I could use your help in these ways. And part of what we'll do with that overtime money is we're going to put it in a fund so we can go to, Cozumel, or we can go to the Grand Canyon, or
we can see the Texans play the Green Bay Packers. This is a real life experience.
True.
One semester, I worked a full-time job as a nurse, a part-time job as a counselor, and I had a PRN job as nursing faculty at a local university. And I said, oh my gosh, these are 3 amazing jobs and 3 amazing opportunities, and I wanted to do them all. That might go back to learning to say no, or not now. But what we decided is if we were going to do this, then the reward was going to go to Lambeau Field and see the Texans play the Green Bay Packers.
And again, I think that's important, but part of what I want to make sure we say again is we ran that by each other first. I agreed to be all in on that, knowing that it was going to be challenging and difficult. And that's really what we're talking about here. So number 4, and babe, I hear this a lot, and I know you hear it a lot, and it really irritates me. And I think sometimes culturally it's okay. It's when you complain about your spouse or you complain about your marriage to somebody that shouldn't be hearing that stuff. Buddy at work, girlfriend, you know, on social media, for heaven's sakes.
Right.
I see that just, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Anyway, there's only two people you should be well, three people, okay? Three people you should be complaining to your spouse about. One is God, all right, praying about and for your spouse. Two is your spouse themselves, all right, with good communication and conflict resolution tools, and or a professional counselor, somebody you could sit down and say, hey, look, this is what's bothering me, this is what's going on. Somebody that's talented at helping you work through that. When you complain about your spouse, and I hate people complain about marriage, oh, the old ball and chain and everything. First thing is your spouse is not there to share the other side of that story, which you do a good job of that. Pancake is flat. I mean, there's two sides to every story. I used to tell people in divorce care, if I brought your spouses in here and let them tell their side of the story, it'd probably be as compelling as yours is. So we just stop it. And if you're doing that, that's another thing that can spiral out of control. And heaven forbid some floozy or some smooth talking dude starts listening to you, you know, poor Christy and everything. And next thing you know, we got an inappropriate relationship going there.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that can happen.
Right. And you know, oftentimes we'll get together and we'll talk about, you know, some degree, but I often will tell people in counseling, well-intentioned people will say something that isn't appropriate for you. And I hate to say it, but they'll give you bad advice. Oh, just leave him, kick him to the curb, or
Yeah.
she's just, you know, bad for you.
Yeah, after they've been through three relationships in 4 months.
Right. So sometimes that can be an issue. Now, if you have a trusted friend or confidant and you're really struggling with stuff, that can be helpful. But one of the things I would guard against is watching how much you're sharing with somebody outside of your marriage about what's going on inside of your marriage, because that's when I think too much information gets shared. And one of the things we'll oftentimes say is you could be struggling with something and have a problem, the two of you work it out, and then there's these other parties who have probably way too much internal information.
Yep. We don't want to do that. So again, you know, here's I'll give you a little counseling for free. Next time somebody complains to you about their spouse, ask them the question, well, that's interesting. What would they say your part in this is? What's your part in all this? How did you contribute to this? All right. So, and the last one, again, this may seem a little benign, but babe, I think this is a really good early warning sign that your marriage may be headed in the wrong direction, is that you're not intentionally and proactively doing anything to build your marriage. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, well, maybe you don't fit into this crowd unless all you're doing is listening to this podcast. But if you're listening to the podcast, I mean, we have other podcasts on relational needs and on bucket lists. And, you know, take the time to invest in your marriage, read a book together, you know, go to a marriage workshop, proactively go get a counselor. You know, before you ever get in trouble, go see a counselor in advance, like you'd get a checkup at your doctor's office or anything. Like what kind of things would you think people could do proactively that would be helpful?
Well, you know, I heard someone say the other day that it felt like they were going through the same thing every day.
Yeah.
You know, going through going Groundhog Day, up to work, back home, you know, same kind of stuff. So the other thing that might be important is to invest in your marriage in simple and silly things.
Yeah.
You know, all we're talking about seems so heavy and so serious. And sometimes we need to remind our partner that and I say this to couples all the time, we're young and in love, but I would say that about us. And obviously, if we've been married 35 years, we don't fall on the Gen X side of the spectrum.
Nope.
So, no, not quite.
Oh.
But there are some things to be talked about where we say, if it's going to be, it's up to me, where I'm going to take the ownership of it and I'm going to do stuff that just makes life a little bit lighter, because sometimes we can focus so much on the heaviness. Even when you hear this topic, you know, your marriage is in trouble, oh, drama. And I heard somebody the other day that reminds us that time is short.
Oh my
Time
gosh.
is going by
Yep.
so fast, and it's so short. Don't hold on to grudges. Don't stay mad. Work through issues, resolve them, and then move on.
Yeah. Bottom line is, are you intentionally and proactively doing little things, big things? Is your mindset of we need to invest in each other? I need to invest in myself. We need to invest in our marriage. Or are you doing those kinds of things? So, gang, there's 5 different red flags or early warning signs that maybe your marriage isn't everything that you hoped it would be when you said I do. And again, Christy and I are dedicated to making sure that you can build the vibrant, healthy marriage you want, and to know that you and your marriage matter. You matter to us, and you matter to a whole lot more people than you think you do. I promise you. And there's people watching you wanting to know how yours is working out. You can be a light to others, and that's what we want for you. So, babe, I know that at one point in time we could probably say all 5 of these would apply to us. But thank God they don't now, and we're thankful for that. We praise God for how He blesses us, and at the end of the day, want to be a blessing to you guys. And babe, I love doing this with you. I want to keep doing this with you, guys. Go to yourmarriagematters.com/145 for this podcast, and I'll put some links into our relational needs survey. I'll put links into our bucket list workshop that we did. We even got a bucket list downloadable PDF. I'll put a link in there. Download those things and do something proactive this week to make your marriage better. Babe, I love you. I adore you. I really enjoy doing this with you.
I love you.
Guys, have a great week this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.